right, in my last video, I told you that we're going to do formatting just a little bit different. I hope that you all enjoy that. It may be that you're like, hey, we like the old way, or it may be that you say, hey, I really like this new way. It may be that half of you like one way and half of you like another way, and I just can't please everybody. But ultimately, what I really want to do is please the Lord. And so I'm hoping that you come along with me and that we submit our hearts to Him today as we study Psalm 7. It starts with verses 1 and 2, and it says this, O Lord my God, in you do I take refuge. Save me from all my pursuers and deliver me, lest like a lion they tear my soul apart, rending it to pieces, with none to deliver. I see this picture of him just running from those who are coming after him, these people who are angry or coming after to destroy him, and he's just running and trying to get away. And what it does is it draws a picture for me from another place in Scripture. We see in Joshua chapter 20 where God had set up these towns that everybody had access to throughout all of Israel, and they were called cities of refuge. But they were places where you could run and plead your case. You could go and share, hey, here's my side of the story, and before these people kill me, I want it to be heard. And if they were found innocent, then they could stay there in that city of refuge. They could stay there and find peace. And it was real interesting because they stayed there and had to stay there until the priest of that city died. When he died, their sins were forgiven and they were able to return home without consequence. As we look at what happens here in this text, I'm not going to read all of the details, but I would encourage you, jump in there and read verses 3 through 5. And what it does is it comes to a place where it says Selah. Well, Selah is not a word that we use a whole lot. There was a fantastic musical group that used to go by that name. I don't even know if they're still there, but boy, they sure blessed me at times. But what does Selah mean? Well, some people will say, well, it means break, take a break. Some people believe that it meant that there was a musical crescendo that would take off for a little while and that the music would take off during that particular psalm. Others believe that it had to do with a balance and weighing things out and really contemplating what's being communicated. To be honest with you, it's far enough gone to where I don't know if anyone can speak conclusively to that, but I kind of like a merging of all of those things. It is to stop and contemplate what's being communicated. It is a crescendo of the music, or you can feel the dynamics of what's been communicated flood over the atmosphere, and in your mind you can just process through that. I really like the idea of weighing out the truth, and what you'll find in verses 3 through 5 is that he literally is contemplating where maybe he has been at guilt. He's asking for that to be weighed out and be thought through, considering his ways. Then in verses 6 through 8, he lays this cry out and he's saying, come to my aid, God, come and save me, come and rescue me. Then we look at what happens in verse 9 and he says, God, you know the truth. Here's what I want us to understand. God knows the truth. Regardless of what anybody else says, regardless of what slander you may have dealt with, regardless of how your enemies may be attacking you, God knows the truth. It's good for us to allow that to be weighed out. It's good for us to subject ourselves to God and His wisdom. And then it's good to know and rest in the idea that He knows the truth. Then in verses 10 through 13, he lays out what I can only describe as this concept. I trust you, God. Knowing that God knows the truth, he comes to this place where he says, I trust you. So read that, study it, and see if you come up with something different. But I believe he's just, God, you know the truth, and I trust you. Verse 14 through 16 talks about how the wicked deal in deceit, how they're constantly conniving, how they're always out of order, how they're doing things not based in truth, not based in integrity. And he comes back in verse 17 and says this, I will give to the Lord the thanks due to his righteousness, and I will sing praise to the name of the Lord, the Most High. At this comes to a conclusion where I believe what he's really saying is God will vindicate. God will be seen as true. So we see then these points as we go through it. One, we see this city of refuge. We see this place that God makes for us. Then we see, take a break. Think about it. Is there areas in your life where sin has led to this, where you've caused this? Then he says, God will come to my aid in truth. God's going to come to the aid of those. He's going to move in truth, and that God does know the truth. He doesn't need witnesses to come and tell him. He already knows what's going on. And so the psalmist here says, I trust in God. I trust that he'll do what's right. Finally, there's this plea that recognizes that the wicked deal in deceit. They don't allow truth to overwhelm. They sidestep what is truth. They miss out on what is truth. And he says, God will vindicate. Now this leads me back to how we started today when we talked about Joshua chapter 20. Now there was this sanctuary city that they could run to. And I think it's a perfect picture. As we're looking at this psalm, it's a perfect picture as you see someone running to that sanctuary city to find refuge, to find a place where they've been falsely accused and that they can find peace. I think it's interesting there that it goes on and says that they're not able to go home until a priest dies in their place, carrying with them the sin that had been on this person who was a manslayer. Now, when we look at that, we also have to just simply recognize God does demand the truth. God does demand justice. If we take a moment to contemplate our sin, we have to admit we've messed up. We deserve punishment. So we run to that refuge. We run to the one who is holy. And we ask him to hear our plea. We commit to him. And in doing so, he takes our sin and dies in our stead. Dies for us. And on his death, we are set free. Jesus is our city of refuge. Jesus is our place. And as a result, we can sing there at the end in verse 17 that we will be vindicated, not because of what we've done, but because of who he is. So take that, live that today, love that, celebrate that. And if you've not given your life to Christ, I encourage you right now, text the word HOPE to 417-256-3128. Have a blessed day.